All right, Jasmine, take it away.
Hey, awesome. I posted the link again, so if you wanted to hop into the Miro board, it's there in the chat. If you've been with us this whole time, I think everyone's name looks familiar, but if you don't know, our theme for this hackathon was equity. And then this is just a quote here: racism and inequity are products of design. They can be redesigned. And then some other info here. I want to take a moment to thank our sponsors that helped us develop this hackathon: HCSS, 3Leaf Consulting, and Slalom Build. They helped us, put together the content for you. A lot of our speakers were from them. And yeah, just big thank you. We're almost to the finish line, so shout out to them. Alrighty, and tonight we are obviously doing usability testing, where we're going to learn how to plan and conduct sessions to validate your designs. After this, we'll have one more final office hour, and then we'll have our showcase in September. So congrats on making it this far. We're so close, y'all. All right, and then tonight we have Dr. Rodwell with us. She's an assistant professor and the UX Lab founder at the University of Houston. And I will pass it on to her so she can tell you more about herself and get us started.
Hi, everyone. Welcome. I really thought I was smiling in that picture. And now I know next time to smile a lot bigger. I am going to get myself positioned and then share my screen. Just a heads up that there will probably be dog noises. There will probably be kid noises. As we all know, it's kind of part of life broadcasting from our houses. So if somebody runs in, I have a background because sometime in one memorable case, they ran in and they did not have clothes on because they're little kids, not like a big kid. So let me go ahead and okay, share screen here. Okay, here I go. Up. Okay. So let me know if you can't see my screen. That's always easier. Okay. So yeah, we're going to actually go through a bit of an overview of the concept. I know some folks are a little bit new to what usability testing is and why it is really the foundation of UX. And some folks are really, old hands at doing this kind of thing. So yeah, we're going to talk about a little bit about where it came from, and then why we do it, what it can tell us, what it can't tell us, and some things that I've learned mostly by making those mistakes myself. So yeah, you name it, when you're first starting out in testing, it's really easy to stumble a little bit. And it's okay as long as you stay calm and trust that you can recover in the process. So yeah, usability testing. I'm going to basically use the most prominent names in the field to talk about it because they were not the only ones, but they were the people who really published about the concept of usability testing earliest. So you've probably heard of Don Norman. I'm curious actually. So if you've heard or haven't heard of him, if you could say in the chat, that would be really cool. So yeah, I mean, he is the one of the two who founded the Nielsen-Norman Group. They have a UX certification program and a lot of resources there. And so I've used a lot of their videos, especially for heuristic evaluations in my classes. And my lab actually has posters that group provided for free on their website that go through each of the standard heuristics. Okay, I'm going to take a peek and See, yeah, he is the OG. And he's constantly doing online seminars these days. So you should keep an eye out for those because he's really fun to listen to talk. Plus you get to see his house. But so he's not the only one, of course. Normally, a lot of people say, well, this concept really arose out of the 90s. But his partner in that organization, Jacob Nielsen, actually argues that usability testing has been around since the 50s and that they were doing it in Bell Labs that early. So it's actually really the real founders of the discipline argue that this has been a concept that's been in the works and has been used for a very long time. Basically, as soon as there was technology and people using it in large groups, there was testing of that technology. Well, that it really didn't catch on until under the banner of usability until much later. So yeah, the 90s brought usability testing and the web. So have folks heard of, let's see, Jared Spool, for example. He was really early on involved in doing usability testing in websites. So, the kinds of websites we had in the 90s. And so this was web design as an emergent field, did usability testing in really different ways. And I worked as a web designer in the late 90s. And our usability testing generally was things like, well, there are only 5 main browser variations. Let's test our site in each of those so we know what kind of experience our audiences will have. Now, of course, it's a lot more complicated. Okay. Let's see, you're probably tired of looking at the soccer ball, so we should. Okay. So basically, what is it? This is the Nielsen-Norman Group's definition. So these days, it can take many forms. My usability testing has largely moved to the virtual because, well, obviously, it's hard to bring people into a physical space right now. And in a lot of cases in the past year, I wasn't allowed to bring people into my lab. We had at the university restrictions on lab participants coming to campus. They're really trying to just sort of protect the community. So although we have a brand new UX lab at the University of Houston, we weren't really able to get people physically in there to try it. So if I was going to test on Zoom, which is how a lot of testing occurs these days, it really could be from anywhere. So in many cases, I've tested with just myself and the tester. But if you have the luxury, as mentioned here, someone else to help you is a great thing. A team of 3 is really a wonderful thing. And we'll get to kind of why a little bit later. It's nice to actually have someone to keep the time, for example, to time tasks, to work on the recording and the notes while you're asking the questions and watching. It's hard to watch people do things and write at the same time and time things. Yeah. So usability testing, most of us tend to think of it in terms of mobile apps, of websites, basically, 2D design concepts. And this is probably the most common thing I've tested as well. But it can be anything with a user interface. It can really be anything that people interact with in the world as well. So it could be a control panel to operate the technology in a classroom. It could be the control board in an airplane. NASA, we have people in our community here in Houston who do usability testing at NASA. So, astronauts need to be able to figure out how to use things in the International Space Station, for example, like take a shower, which is extremely complicated. I learned through the magic of YouTube recently. So yeah, okay. Why test? Part of why I'm covering this is a lot of you guys might need to make this case to somebody in the future. A lot of people in the business world still really haven't heard that much about usability testing, or they don't know what it is. And I found that a lot of people really confuse it with marketing as well, with the kinds of intelligence that marketing can provide us. So, they'll say like, yeah, let's do some usability testing. Then we can find out whether people between the ages of 18 and 25 will buy our product. And that's not really the intention of usability testing. But one of the reasons we need it, and why I'm sort of an evangelist for it, is that it's hard to see outside of your own bias when you are one of the creators of a design. So basically, you've been looking at it too long if you've worked on the concept. And so you don't actually have a fresh pair of eyes to perceive what might be difficult for somebody else to understand. We've all had communication difficulties with people in our lives where we said something, we thought it was clear, and somebody else misinterpreted it. And design is a communication style as well. So, we create a design, we think it makes sense, it's understandable, and we miss a lot of what other people are going to find confusing about it. So yeah, people surprise us all the time. The things that don't make sense to people are 100% of the time that I've tested surprising. We're like, wait, they don't get that. That was the thing, that was the part of my design that I thought was really, really solid. So yeah, you need an outside perspective. It's also fair to test with the people who are actually going to use a thing. I'm always surprised how many business people don't think about, the perspectives and the opinions of somebody who's eventually going to have to use a piece of technology for their job. It teaches you things that you wouldn't have otherwise picked up on, like, oh my gosh, this color scheme is completely imperceptible outdoors, and the people using this work outside. It teaches us, that, well, we can't expect people to have a strong cell phone signal. So we have to make sure that enough of this content can be, essentially transferred when they do have a signal, that the whole thing will work. Yeah, we need warnings about what's going to cause frustration. Otherwise, your product could fail. We don't want that because that's expensive mostly. We want to get ahead of the development process really and test early on so we can fix things. We can fix things before somebody has actually gone to the trouble of making the product. So yeah, it's a lot easier to fix the problems early on. And that's one of the signs for the UX lab. I feel like I need to jazz that up a little bit. What do you think? I think stickers of some sort. It looks a little bare bones right now. That's one of the two rooms. Yeah. So it tells us whether people can actually do something. I've been on websites where I've tried to check out, for example. I've tried to buy something and I add it to my cart and it says, oh, you need to log in. Okay, cool. I have an account. I log in. My cart is wiped. And then I'm really annoyed and buy. Yeah. So the people who created that site want me to accomplish my goal, and I want me to accomplish my goal too. I can't count the number of state, local, federal government sites that don't let us accomplish our basic goals. So yeah, they need usability. It tells us, the all important thing I just mentioned about how designs actually function in the real world. So a lot of usability testing actually occurs in people's homes. I think of that as like fancy usability testing because most of what we wind up doing is not generally getting to go into people's houses, especially these days. A lot of that's been cut off. But for example, the shower manufacturer Moen, that's how you pronounce it, right? Moen, the M-O-E-N. They actually go into people's homes and watch people shower and design their products based on how people actually shower. If you're wondering who would be a usability tester for shower equipment, the answer is nudists. I'm serious. I don't know if that's the first time nudists have ever come up in a Hexagon event, but I hope it's the last. So yeah, there's always an audience. Lego tests in-house, so does OXO. Yeah, a lot of the makers of physical objects do usability testing in-home to see how people really use them. So yeah, bugs and unclear portions. I wish the people who had created my refrigerator had done a little more usability testing. Okay, yeah. So it can't tell us some of the things that marketing is really good at. So I feel like the two always kind of go hand in hand. I just recently had to tell somebody, look, usability is not really for finding out if there is an audience for the kind of service you're offering. We can do surveys. We can certainly do something along those lines. But what this particular guy was describing was more up the alley of marketing. So we don't produce the materials to actually help sell things to people, but we do excel in other ways. So yeah, usability testing is not primarily a quantitative method. I'm going to show you some quantitative things because the business world likes charts. It likes numbers. You've probably experienced that in your own work. But yeah, I've gotten generally the most excitement from people in two areas: quotes from users during usability testing and charts. So yeah. But statistically significant numbers, that's not what this is for, because usability testing takes a long time. So it can take weeks to just test with a dozen people. And you won't necessarily get, a representative sample of your entire user base. What you will see, though, are patterns. And after a while, it's clear, okay, almost everybody's having issues in this one area. That's enough. We know what we need to fix. But yeah, you'd have to have a pretty big team to test with, say, hundreds of people or thousands. When you have unmoderated usability testing, it's a little more likely. And there are sites, out there online where you can volunteer to do unmoderated usability testing. They give you a set of questions and you try it out on your own. So yeah, if you want numbers, that's the way to go. Yeah, okay, so yeah, it's not for A/B testing. So comparing two versions of a design. Although I have done usability testing on more than one concept and compared them, but it's not the same thing. And I generally don't prefer to do that. It complicates the testing process. It doesn't tell you if people are going to love the product out in the world, because again, you don't necessarily have those numbers. It can tell you whether it's usable, and you can get a lot of a sense of whether people are enjoying themselves. I always ask people questions about how they feel when they're using something. And, so you can get a sense that it is a concept that people are having a positive experience with, but you can't necessarily tell if it's going to succeed in the market overall. Somebody might be like, I like a site, this is nice, I'm testing it, hooray, but they might not necessarily actually use it. So there are a lot of sites that I've been to that I've never really been back to or given my business to. Companies that I've liked and meant to go back to, but didn't really, wind up ordering from, and then they went under, and yeah. So yeah, market demand, that's not really what usability testing is for. Okay. So our lab actually has 2 soundproofed rooms and ceiling cameras at UH. We don't have the one-way mirror. And I don't think you really need one. That's why we don't have one. Also, they're really expensive. So if you wind up with a budget where you can do that, I mean, go ahead, be creepy. Have your one-way mirror. But you don't necessarily need that. And you don't need a lab. You don't. I mean, maybe I shouldn't be saying that because I got a lab, but you don't necessarily need one, especially these days. They are very fun to have, but you can do plenty good usability testing using your laptop and a webcam. So as long as you can screen share and they can screen share, that's really going to get you pretty far. But yeah, I mean, if you have the chance, it's pretty fun. So in this example, they have a moderator running the test and a research participant, and then they have observers who are taking notes, which is pretty luxurious. So again, this is sort of an ideal setup. I've worked in some pretty large places where we didn't have usability labs, mostly because we did a lot of going out and working with people in their spaces. And so we didn't actually bring them into our workplace a lot. So yeah, the parts of a test. So I've done a lot of these tests at this point, and here's one thing. First off, I still get nervous before the first one. I'm usually good by the second, but the first one of any test, I'm always like, oh my gosh, like I don't want to drink coffee beforehand. I'm wondering, is the prototype going to work, or whatever I'm testing is, are my questions any good? Is the test going to go smoothly? Am I going to be able to record without, yeah. And so I think it's natural when that first person logs on and you've never done it before to feel a little bit apprehensive. But that's sort of why we start off like this event with a little bit of an icebreaker. And I'm now like, can I use can I use that icebreaker question with my next testing person? Because it's good to warm people up. Especially these days, I've found people are chatty when you get them on testing. So I like to introduce myself and explain what we're doing. This is what we're testing and why. One of the most important things that I mentioned during the test is that I am not testing that person's ability to use technology. People during usability testing will apologize like crazy. They will put themselves down a lot too. They'll really be self-deprecating. They'll say, I'm so sorry, I'm really bad with computers. Like, sorry, my fingers I'm always clicking the wrong things. And so people will say negative things about their own performance. Like they think you're staring at them watching how good they are at using a website. But I always say, the basic formula, we are not testing you. You're actually helping us find errors in this product. You are showing us what needs improvement in our design, because if you don't understand it intuitively, other people won't either. So please make mistakes. Although actually I try not to use the mistake word, because there really are no mistakes in usability testing. There are things that teach us what we need to fix. So in some cases, when I do research, we give them, we tell them this is what the test structure is. This is how long it's going to take. In academic testing, we have to say, if you want to stop at any time, you can. That's one of the sort of ethical things we do, but I've never had to do that in the business world. So perhaps I've also had nobody ever say, oh my gosh, I want to stop this. This is horrible. Most people actually get really into it as they go. If anything, people will try to get you off script. They don't mean to, but people will start talking about the most random things while you're testing them. And one of the big skills that you have to have when you're testing is to bring people back to the task, bring people back. So you've got your introduction and you've got your list of things you want to check for. When you're doing those, you have to ask yourself in advance, what do I need to know about this product? What are the core components of this design? What are the absolute must accomplish tasks? And you don't just ask people to do things. You also give them a chance to share feedback. So, what do you think of this solution? I ask them to sort of speak their thought process out loud. So like if I was asking you guys, to tell me or to test Miro, I would say, okay, tell me what you're doing now and why. So I would say, if I was a tester, okay, I'm moving the little hand that I see because I'm sharing my screen. I have a little hand. I'm moving my little hand over and I'm trying to figure out how to go to the next slide. Okay, it looks like if I mouse over here, I can go to the next slide. Okay, I don't know what these other icons are. Let me mouse over them. Okay, frames? What's a frame? Comments? Huh? Okay, chat? Yeah. So I would have people kind of go through like that and explain to me what they're thinking as they move around. I try not to make my usability tests go over an hour or two, because people really break down in their capacity to focus and the useful insights that you get out of them after an hour. There are exceptions. If you're out with them working in the field, sometimes they just naturally go over. And if you've got a chatty Cathy, then I've definitely had 1 hour tests turn into 2 hour tests because somebody just wants to chat. Again, the experience can be really different if you're testing on Zoom or if you're testing in person. Yes, pre-testing nervousness is 100% a thing. So yeah, I do quantitative measurements throughout, and I do it at the end. And so the throughout part is something called the SEQ or the SEC. And the end one that I often do is the sus, which didn't used to be funny before it was a slang word. So like, yeah, now it's funny. And your closing, just thank them for their time. If there is an incentive involved, I mean, yay, you if you have an incentive. But you know, if there's an incentive involved, you can tell them that. You can tell them next steps. Are you going to be in touch with them in the future? Tell them if they have any thoughts, concerns, questions, to be in touch with you, and give them your contact information if they don't have it. We often follow up with people more than once. So I say, you know, how much we appreciate that person's time. And this is, you know, I tell them how we're going to use the information as well. And yeah, like I might be talking to you in a month because we're going to go back to the drawing board. Yeah, I mean, it's really, testing is great because a lot of the time teams don't know what they need to focus on in work settings. Like they don't know what really needs to be the next feature, what needs the most work, and testing can really focus your group in that way. Okay, let's see. Woo. I always like it when it jumps. So yeah, I wish I had a real stopwatch. I mean, the truth is, you won't be able to see because I have a background really. Oh, do it. Okay. It's kind of a invisible phone. Yeah, I often just time things on my phone because it's there. I've also actually, my other thing that I do recently is I time things on my Apple Watch, which I got just to do usability testing. That's how, yeah, I don't know what that says, like what on the nerd scale. I didn't want it for any other cool features. I actually got it because then I could tap my wrist when I'm timing things for testing. So yeah, one of the things that we do and can create those cool graphs that business people often like is to see how long it takes people to complete tasks. This tells us, you know, if people are struggling, if they take like 2 minutes can seem forever in a usability test. But if people are, you know, accomplishing them very quickly, that tells us one thing. If it's a really long period of time, that tells us something else. And I often kill the task when it reaches the 2 minute mark because we get people getting really frustrated. If they seem to be just tootling around, exploring whatever it is, and you've hit 2 minutes and they don't seem to be going anywhere, you can also say, okay, and kind of either re-ask the question, or you can move on to the next question and, you know, count the task unsuccessful because they weren't able to actually accomplish it quickly. So you need to ask yourself beforehand, how are you going to time things while watching somebody complete tasks and taking notes? Yeah, I hope I hope for everybody that you do get a buddy if you want to time things, because it is a real asset. So, I mean, people just having someone just there going stop and start is brilliant. So yeah, how will you take notes too? If you're going to time, how are you going to time? If you're going to take notes, how are you going to take notes? Keep in mind that you probably are going to, especially if you're virtually testing, which I'm kind of focusing on right now because it's 2021. You may have your screen entirely taken up by watching somebody do something. If you don't, taking notes gets simpler. But what if your whole screen is filled with the test? Then how are you going to take notes? How are you going to record the test? So this is a completely different animal. If you're doing it on Zoom, you can just record, but you have to ask permission first, just like we did in this meeting. If you're doing it in a lab, you might record via cameras in the room. If you're doing it out in the field, I've worked with testers who brought, handy cams, like video cameras out in the field and recorded that way. They had tripods and they brought them and they videotaped. So we could all watch it back later. So where are you conducting the test? Labs are great for control. Everybody's in the same environment, so you get that consistency, and you don't have to worry about things like different qualities of computer that everybody has in their house, and different speeds of internet connection. On the other hand, for a lot of products, you actually want people to test them using many, many different kinds of computers, from grandparents with clunky, obsolete computers to, the fastest gamer with their computer. So maybe you want that variation. So yeah, labs, consistency, not labs, best for replicating real world scenarios. And yeah, you got to know what questions you really need to ask. The core elements of the design and what people need to be able to accomplish. So yeah, if I was Pet Finder, for example, the main core task, that main path is find pets, look at pets, put in a note requesting adoption. I learned recently that you can adopt farm animals on petfinder.com. So if you're looking for a horse, let me tell you. So how do you find people? People can be good. Like, for a lot of projects, it's like, well, I need to test with scientists. So I'm going to tap my network and I'm going to find some scientists. Or you can actually go out physically and recruit people. I worked in one place where we went to coffee shops and recruited people, which, let me tell you, I hated so very much because it like felt absolutely mortifying. Yeah, I'm just embarrassed if I have to walk up to somebody and be like, "Hi, you want to take my usability test?" But I've also recruited. Okay, before I talk about the online recruiting. In a lot of businesses, you're testing with people within the company. So, you are testing with HR people in the company, and that's a pool you may have access to just by virtue of working in a big company or a little company. But so yeah, who do you need to test? What are your key personas? This is not the persona workshop, so I won't go into depth on that, but who are your users? So how are you going to find them? You need a plan. And how will you convince them to participate? And how much time do you have? Because recruiting and scheduling takes longer than you think, always. So yeah, there are a lot of sites out there, and you can actually, I think it's good practice for UX people to actually be on the testing side at least a couple of times. So you can actually volunteer on these sites yourself. Volunteer, a lot of them pay you. And take usability tests if you qualify. The competition is fierce. So like, I've never actually been selected myself, and yeah. But some sites include UserZoom, respondent.io, Mechanical Turk. Yeah, there are a few options. And I feel like I should type respondent.io. Okay, I'm doing it. It wanted to capitalize it, but so I put it in the chat. Yeah, I registered with them for a while. It was fun, but I always would get screened out because they'd ask, "Are you are you involved in the following industries?" And yeah. So testing with random people, aka randos, online has its ups and downsides. I did a project for a big energy company in town where we did really huge amounts of usability testing. And we found all our people online. And one problem with it was that people were often flaky. And we were paying them. A lot of these sites are great to use as a company because you can actually connect a bank account to them and provide people with cash incentives when you indicate they've completed a test. So, and you can do gift cards too, but we've given people cold hard cash in the past through, I think, Respondent. Yeah, it's been a while. So with those, you can specify demographics really easily, and you can say, like, I want just people in Texas between these ages. They can't work in the energy industry, and they must have a smartphone. And a lot of these, like, will find you usability testing participant sites arose because that by itself would be insanely time consuming if you had to do that. And you're looking for just like large numbers of random testers. So yeah, how are you going to get them to participate? Incentives are good. Some people will test for free. If they work for your company, then oftentimes, or a company you're contracting with, then oftentimes they don't have much of a choice. They're like kind of voluntold to do the test. And yeah, that can result in some really grumpy testers in some cases, but they often come around. And yeah, if you're paying people, you get a little bit more grace, I've found, with the amount of time that you have them. You do also, I'll say, get some interesting experiences with random testers. I've definitely had some sketchy ones. I'll just say that. Not very many though, because the sites, you can say this person was sketchy, and but yeah, it's the internet. We've all been to the internet, so yeah. Screeners. Okay, so yeah, I felt like it sort of bears repeating. Okay, so yeah, screeners you'll find if you volunteer for any of these sites basically are there to filter out people who don't meet the criteria that you need. So a good screener shouldn't take anybody more than 10 minutes to complete. And it asks basic demographic questions, but also one really critical thing to ask when you're screening people is whether they work for a company that is a competitor. The folks I know who work at some of the big tech companies are really critically have to ask that. So, Google doesn't want people from Apple coming in and testing their products. Amazon is really protective of their intellectual property. So yeah, if you work for, you have to keep in mind whether, yeah, that's going to be a concern. Whether if you test with people who aren't part of your organization, even if you found them personally, whether you need to make sure that they're not part of a competing organization or part of an industry that might bias them in some way while testing. I tested an app for a home security company once, and we specifically screened out people who work in home security. I mean, yeah, first off, we were trying to develop a cool app and we didn't want, Simply Safe to steal our idea. Or any of the others. What's the big one? I can't remember. Feel free to write on my slides at any time, by the way, if you, but yeah, if you know what the big one is, I want to say Ace, but that's the hardware shop. Yeah, so always ask questions related to where people work. ADT, thank you. That's going to drive me crazy. Yeah, you might ask about age, gender if it's relevant. You might ask about regional location. You might ask about, all the, yeah, age is a common one because, and I often get filtered out of those just because it's so common to ask that. Education level can be a question. Yeah, what else? Does anybody, can anybody think of another good screener question? What you might use to determine someone's eligibility? You can put it in the chat, or, you know, you can, like I said, always write on my slides too. Like I wish I could share my screen and draw and graffiti on my own slides, but yeah, shopping behavior, income level. Yes, and yeah, shopping behavior and income level are both really good ones. So, you know, a lot of them ask too about whether you're an early adopter, you know, whether you're an influencer basically with technology. Yeah, they do, some screeners do ask questions about, yeah, location for sure, ethnicity, language. That's definitely one. For one tool, we specifically looked for people who were not native speakers of English. That was a big one because it was a demographic that this particular company felt like they weren't reaching. So yeah. And we've also done usability testing to ensure things are accessible. So we screen for people specifically who use adaptive technology to use websites or apps. So people who are, you know, having their screens read to them, or who, you know, I did testing with just people who were extremely colorblind, for example, which includes one of my kids, and I did make him take the test. You know, it's annoying to live with a usability person. My kids have have done many usability tests. Not sorry. Okay, yeah, you have to remind people. So I'm sure a lot of you guys have gotten you know, notifications when you have an appointment. These days, I feel like you get about 5 notifications in different ways. Like you get a text, you get a phone call, you get sometimes an email, and they do multiples in a lot of places. My dentist is extremely active in the reminders. Like they've clearly been burned before. I don't know, are there a lot of no-shows at the dentist? You can tell me what you think. But yeah, so reminding people is really useful. I always ask this in my classes, like but okay, I'm just gonna ask it here. What do you think the worst days for usability testing are in terms of no-shows? So which weekdays? You can put it in the chat. Ooh. Oh yeah, if you test on a Sunday, nobody's going to come to that. Friday. Yep, that's one of them. It's one of them. Yep. So yeah, Mondays and Fridays are actually the worst. I've never done it. No, that's not true. I've done weekend usability testing. I hate weekend usability testing. But sometimes you got to do it. And those have been in a lot of cases, like when I've been on research trips too. But yeah, Mondays and Fridays, people are, I mean, I think it's the easing into the week problem. You forget what's on your schedule until you've actually sat down and gotten into it. And then easing out of the week, you know, people are flaky on Fridays. They think they're going to do something, then Friday rolls around and they're like, sorry, I would rather be on my couch watching, you know, Below Deck. So, yeah, but you have to remind people, you know, the basic logistics over and over sometimes. The time, the date, the location, you know, make sure they know that they're going to need to share their screen if relevant, that they're, oh my gosh, sorry. My dogs are wrestling outside, right outside the door. I don't know if you can hear that. It was inevitable. So yeah, remind them of the incentives too, if you are lucky enough to have them, and give people a heads up if it's a group test or an individual test. I've definitely heard some horror stories where people have showed up to do usability testing and found out they were testing in a group. These days, not so much of a problem. And tell them before they show up that you are going to be recording. This is a sort of an ethical thing, but also because a lot of us will agree to things that we don't necessarily feel comfortable with when we're looking someone in the face. We've come all this way. We feel like we don't want to waste their time. So you got to give people the opportunity to make a decision for themselves without the pressure of having you looking at them. Yeah. Okay, we're almost to the interactive part. Yeah. So reminding people is really important. Communicating the logistics is really important. When you're inviting people, there's the explanations, the details, and then there's the reminders. Sometimes reminding people and coordinating people coming in is, we've made that the intern's job when we've been lucky enough to have interns, because it can be a really time-consuming task. And running the tests and lining up all the people both is a big job. Keep in mind accessibility as well. Are people going to need accommodations to get to you? Are they going to need accommodations to get into the testing space? This is important too while testing remotely, to ask if people in advance are going to need, if there are any barriers essentially to them being able to share their screen and to test on, a particular site, product, etc. But yeah, if you're testing with minors, of course, you may need to account for having a parent nearby. And while this is less common in a lot of business settings, it does happen. And so you'll have to also use part of your introduction to tell parents basically to keep their mouth shut. As a parent, you want to help your kid, but parents are the worst. Parents in usability testing, they want to help, they want to interfere. Oh, here he just needs to. No. So if you are testing with minors and you do have parents in the room, you're going to need to coach them a little bit. Let him explore. Don't get involved. Try to not say anything. Yeah. Kids apps have to be tested with someone, right? And they can't just test with 42-year-old moms. They do need to test with kids at some point in the process. So yeah, kid testing can be actually pretty fun too. Okay, so what's a protocol? A lot of us work in teams, and a protocol ensures that the people who are running the test all do the same thing while they're conducting the test. We've all got different styles, and this basically ensures we get the most scientific data possible, the most consistent data possible. So let's say you're testing in person. Your protocol might be lay out some snacks and drinks, get out some little bottles of water. Pre-pandemic, this was like just sort of standard practice for testing that I do. Snacks and drinks were like, you just kept those near your usability lab and tried not to eat them all most days. Yeah, little bags of chips. I think I have some stale ones still from before the pandemic. Play some mood music like we did at the beginning of this event. You can actually do that with group remote testing too. I've heard some funny mood music in labs. So you can either go for the comedy, or you can go for like some spa music, but something, yeah, pipe in some nice music. If it's group, you can do name tags. Basically any way you would run one of these events in person is kind of the way you could run usability testing. Incentives. I remember one time we left all the incentives at home. They were all Amazon gift cards, and we forgot to bring them. And we had testers coming in all day, and we didn't have our incentives. So actually that happened twice. now that I think about it. Not good. Yeah, people were not good. So supplies, pens, paper, cards, iPads, iPhones, make sure they're charged. Like, please learn from my mistakes. Check your tech, just a checklist that everybody can follow or you can follow. Don't assume your brain's going to be awesome before you start testing. Write down even the dumb things. Like for me, I'd write, Liz, start recording, big letters, start recording, time this. Yeah, don't overestimate yourself. You'll be focusing on what they're doing and the little things can really escape you. So virtually, yeah, you need instructions for yourself virtually. I'm going to sign on. I'm going to make sure that I can give them access to share their screen. I'm going to make sure that they can hear me clearly and see me clearly. I'm going to have a plan for what to do if I can't hear or see them clearly, or if their connection drops, or if they want to spend 30 minutes showing me their cat, which happened to me once. It was a really good cat, though. I mean, I've gotten tours of people's houses. Zoom and Skype before that, testing can be really weird. I've definitely had someone on the toilet too. So there you go. I forgot about that one until just right now. He turned off his camera, to be fair. Activity. Okay, there are so many bad websites. It's really hard to choose. But I chose one. So here is what I'm going to have you try. Okay, we're going to usability test ourselves. So you do not have to time yourself, but if you want to, get yourself, your mobile phone and call up your timer. I've got an iPhone, so that's just the clock. And, go to stopwatch if you're, or something equivalent. And so what you do with timing is once you finish asking somebody to do a task, you hit start on the timer. And when they have successfully completed that task, even if they don't know they're done, you hit stop and you write down how long it took. So you can time yourself, but you don't have to. And I was trying to talk slowly so you can find your mobile phone if you need to. Okay. So we're going to try this site, and I'm going to put this URL in the chat as well. But you can click on it there if you want to. Oh, it's in the chat. Thanks, Jasmine. Okay. So yeah, click on the URL and I will hold off for a second. I'm going to show you. Oh, whoa. No, I'm not. Okay. Once you've completed the task, I'd like you to put down how easy or hard it was for you. Anything you want to add about your experience, and if you timed it, how long it took. I realize that's a lot to fit on a Post-it. So if you, if you need to make it a little bigger, that's fine. Or if you want to take up more than one Post-it, I promise I won't judge. So I'm going to go back and I'm going to tell you how I would ask somebody to do this task if I were running a test. So I'm going to talk to you guys like you are all my testers. Okay, I've given you a URL in the chat. Please open that up in your browser. Then you give them a minute. And then sometimes they cannot figure it out, but sometimes they can. Yeah. Okay, so you can click on the link in the Zoom chat. Okay, so once you find this page, show me how you would find available laptops on this site and add one to your cart. Okay, all of you can go, try that, and hit start on your timer as you begin. When you're done, write down how it went for you. So I'm going to repeat the task, which is something I also often do. When I'm testing. So yes, go to AliExpress, try to find a laptop and add it to your cart. And I'm going to plug in my own laptop really quickly. Okay. Let me go back. See how everybody's doing. Yeah, so if I could see all of your screens, I would be watching you try to do this right now. I'm kind of cheating. And yeah, if you have any questions, feel free to put them in the chat as well. Yeah, it's hard. It is hard to select the categories. Yeah, I had some products open in new windows as well. Ooh, yeah. Oh, I'm so glad somebody else got that error too. When I add things to the cart, it just displays at 0 for me too. Like, I was stuck earlier with that. I was like, also, yeah, I have a lot of questions. Yeah. I mean, this is the sort of funny thing from our perspective is this is a pretty popular site, actually. Just not really so much in the US. Yeah. Yeah, if you finish and you want to try it, you can try it on your smartphone too, or tablet. Yep, AliExpress. It sort of auto-completes when. I feel like their site is a really different experience on a smartphone and a tablet versus a desktop machine too. But yeah. Okay, so what else? Yeah. I was also confused that I had to select where it ships from. Sorry. Keep doing that. Yeah, that was really tricky. Yeah. Oh yeah, that's the thing. Like sometimes it can be a pretty straightforward experience if you don't have the if you don't have to really consider the specs. Yeah. Let's see what else. Yeah, there are coupons on there, which are kind of easy to miss. Yeah, it's tricky to know whether you can actually get it shipped to you. Like as you get more into the site, whether that it will actually ship to the US is a question. Like there's a laptop I found in there that 100% is a copy of a Mac. But it's like, it's not a Mac. And you can't get it shipped to the US, presumably because you'd get sued. But yeah. So I've actually found there are, in the US, we actually have the luxury in a lot of cases of having sites with decent baseline usability. This is definitely not true globally. A lot of my research is in Japan, and there are a lot of really poor usability experiences on e-commerce sites there. I found that a lot of them that were, not global corporations, still didn't have great usability. So usability and, yeah, user-centered thinking is not something that really is sort of equivalently disseminated around yet. Yeah, lots of pop-ups. Yeah, it is confusing. The screens are really busy. This is something I really dislike about a lot of e-commerce sites, when they have kind of too many things visually going on the site. And I'm noticing that, people by and large were like, a bit over a minute. And when you're watching somebody try to complete a task, that can actually really feel like a very long time. This would be a lot more complicated if you were actually like, I am buying myself my laptop, and you were seriously doing this task for yourself. Yeah, this is a great point right here. I was going to ask in the chat whether you feel like this particular site inspires confidence. Like, do you feel comfortable with the experience of buying an expensive electronic device from this site? So something like, yeah, and you can, if you are already done, you can put in the chat what your confidence level is with buying an expensive laptop from here. Let's see, have I missed any? I'll keep. Yeah. It's like suggested I add ugly clothes to my cart. Yeah, the add-ons can be a little intense there too. So like, there's visually a lot here. Like I would love to use an eye tracker on this, just because what am I looking at? I was afraid to click on that actually, because it looked really shadowy down here, and I was a little afraid it was you know how Amazon will let you submit like user images of a product of something. I was like, oh God, is this going to be somebody doing something sketchy with a laptop? Again, this kind of looks like a Mac, but it's not. Yeah, I mean, color. I'm 100% not sure what the color section is here. So if I got to test with you on Zoom, or if I got to test with you, in person, I'd be paying attention to your mouse and where it's going, and ideally asking you to explain to me what you're thinking as you look through this. Like, please select all product options. Well, I don't know. well, you know, this is the thing. I don't have enough information to make this decision. So do I care where it ships from? Which is the closest country to Houston? France, right? Geographically, so we'll ship faster. But there are only 2 left. Oh, they can't come to the US. Womp womp. Maybe Spain can. Nope. Germany? Nope. Well, why don't you just restrict by location? Here we go. Okay. So yeah. So this there was a company whose website I was tempted to pick on as well, called Don Quixote. It's a Japanese company, so it's like Don Quixote, but all of their stuff is like a assault on your senses. And so many sites these days have so much going on that it really is a challenge to make that usable. So yeah. Okay, let me see if there are any comments that I've missed before I take us to the next thing. Oh yeah. All right, hold on. I'm zooming in. Yeah, pop-ups. Yeah, you know, is this, I don't know, had anybody been to this site before too? Yeah, this is the thing, like it, oh yeah, so people have used it, yeah. There are some sweet deals on here, but is it gonna show up? Like, you know, is this, this is like, you know, oh yeah, Don Quixote's store is, I lived almost next door to one. It was a little loud though, but yeah, it's visually so much going on. So much. Yeah, so they had good Halloween costumes though. Yeah. So yeah, one of the reasons, I mean, the confidence is something that we talk about a lot in usability. You know, does someone feel essentially comfortable with the experience that they're having? Okay, I'll come back and check, but I'm going to switch to the next thing just for the sake of time and talk about numbers really quickly. Now, I'm not a numbers person. I am an anthropologist by training because I like to study people. I think people are very weird and interesting and kind of nuts. But yeah, you know, I was interested in how people and technology intersect within anthropology. And then I found what a great response numbers got when I was presenting, and I was like, fine. This is actually why it's helpful to work with folks who do have some basic statistics in their background. I've never taken a statistics class and have had to learn everything I know from smart people in the workplace. Even one of my kids has taken statistics, so I guess you can take it in high school these days. Yeah, I mean, he knows more than I do, so free labor. So yeah, okay, the system usability skill is, if you don't do any others, the sus, I mean, first of all, you get to walk around saying sus and actually mean it in a work context. But yeah, I mean, this is really a common one you can do. The added bonus is the math is sort of annoying, but I'll show you the little Excel and Google Sheets hack that I learned from a random web page, not a sketchy one, a random web page online, and I've been doing ever since. So the questions basically go back and forth. It's like almost like a zipper. So they go from positive, negative, and you ask people to rate from 1 strongly disagree to 5 strongly agree. And so you tell them the questions. I usually do this at the end of the test. And, you know, the questions do sound a little bit like they were written by a robot, but, and you will find that there is some variation. Some people have written new questions of this type because of course they have. But the benefit of this is that there's a lot of data out there that you can use as a benchmark. And so you can compare your system to things within your industry. So comparable systems within the airline industry or within oil and gas or what have you. So industry average for, and that's like a vague term, but for basically average sus score for that we know of in all the data out there that has been collected on sus, which is actually a lot in the scholarly literature as well. There are a lot of journal articles that use sus. Still funny, is 68. So if you get better than 68, 68 is like a D in in school. So I'm going to give you a sus sheet. I just want to say that with some numbers in it. But before that, here, I'm going to put the link in the chat, but you can click on it here. You don't need to click on it right away. You don't ever need to click on it if you don't want to. But that way you can kind of play along as I show you things. Yay. Okay. So the math actually is this. So if you're calculating a sus score in Excel or Google Sheets, and your cells in question are, let's say, B2 through B11, this is what it would look like. You're basically alternating. So you're subtracting 1, you're doing 5, you're doing -1, 5 minus, -1, 5 minus. It's lovely. And then multiplying by 2.5. Really easy, right? This is why I basically have been cutting and pasting for 10 years. But I'll show you my hack, and I'll also link you to my hack in this so you can try it yourself. So you can click on the sheet and you can try this with my file, but I'll also, so it's in the chat. I'm also going to screen share. No, I don't want to buy a laptop. Oh my gosh, I'm never going to make it. Okay. Yay. So when you get here, go ahead and download it. And I can also drop a copy of the file in the chat. I promise not to give you a virus. But yeah, go to File, Download, and download it however you want to play with. Yeah, I've tried having all of us kind of edit at the same time, and it makes for total anarchy. So just download it. Okay. So let me see. Yeah, so Jasmine put the hack in there as well. Okay, I'm gonna pass you a copy of the file in here too, if you'd like it. And if this freezes my computer in any way, it's been nice knowing you. So let's see, okay. Finding the file, finding the file.
I just did it, so.
Oh, you sent it already?
Yeah,
Oh
hopefully that worked.
This is like what it's like to actually have a helpful assistant when you're doing testing. Because then you're like, you get to actually just sort of do your thing and somebody helps you. It's nice. So yeah, it's in the chat as well. So I'm going to show you on my screen what the score looks like. So yeah, because it's the column B, that's what basically it looks like. And I swear, I've just been copying this across my files for 10 years. But I also have something set up where I've programmed all my stuff so that I don't have to do that. So I set up a function in all of my spreadsheets so I can do equals sus and then just enter the cells in and it calculates it for me. So that's the second link that Jasmine posted, is how to do that. It's also right here in Miro. But let me go back, and I really am going to close that laptop window so I don't keep clicking on it. So yeah, the sus is 10 questions. And you will find that zipper in your answers as well. If you've got a really usable product, you'll get a lot of 1s and a lot of 5s because people will agree with the positive sentiments and they'll disagree with the negative ones. You can see with this set of data, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Oh, I had 10. I think I knew that. I had 10 testers and 10 questions. So yeah, my sus for this person is 90. I could then drag across my whole group and I can see what everybody's is. So I'd get the overall score by taking the average of those. And, you know, average within spreadsheets. Oh, wait, there was an 11th. That jerk. No, wait, there's one. I'm on a really small screen and everything is a mystery to me right now. So this one was a perfect score. That doesn't happen very often, but it actually did happen in this case because I pasted some real testing data in here. So that person really liked us. So yeah, okay, so I go to N. Okay, so I try to be a little organized in here, but you know, so I could do average, and it, you know, Google likes to tell you what everything is. I said B12 too. What was it again? N? I don't remember. Let's find out. It will give me an error if it's not. 86.45. That is okay. We'll say 86.46. That's my average sus score, and that's really freaking good. So again, once I've got all of that, you just type in equals average and then your range. Did I do it? Yep, it was N. So yeah. All right, that's my average. And since you've got this file now, you can kind of look at my guts a little bit. And you can see one of the annoying things about that hack, though, is that it makes you, it won't let you do a range. You actually have to type each one. So somebody needs to do the code hack and improve it. And that person's not going to be me, but hopefully somebody out there will. Yeah, if you want to write to the author and say, hey, make it a range, you'd be doing me a favor. But still, it's cool to be able to just make sus a function in your stuff. And yeah. So I'll give you a chance to ask questions about that, but I want to show you one more thing in. Yeah, so you might be able to guess, download. You might be able to guess why we ask that. Benchmarking is really useful. This is comparing yourself to others, but also comparing yourself to previous versions of your design. So we can really track improvement over time. I actually am kind of cranky when we get a really good score the first time. I mean, don't tell the designers because they're psyched. They're like, yes, my purpose in life has been vindicated. But like, you know, as a researcher, I feel like if we're awesome from the start, there's nowhere to go. And I don't like giving people bad news about the concept, but I love the joy that comes from like actually improving dramatically. So yeah. And when I get to go back and say I tested and everything's great, you know, it becomes a little harder to argue for why we spent the time to some business people. So fortunately, it doesn't always happen. Most things stink early on, but so okay. This is the single ease question, or the system ease question, or the system ease quotient, depending on who you ask. And this is a question that you can ask after people complete each task. If you love asking people to rate things and the sus is not enough for you, so I want excuses to make more charts. So this is a 7-point scale, because why not? And it's one question. Hence, you know, yeah, it's one question. So after each task, you say, how difficult or easy was it to complete the task? If somebody gives you lower than a 5, you typically ask for an explanation. You say, you know, can you tell me more about that? And UX people are kind of like therapists. We try to ask open-ended questions, not yes or no questions. So instead of saying, so that was hard, right? which is also a leading question, but you weren't happy with that task. Or something that they can answer in a really short way. You say, okay, can you explain the reason for your ranking? Or can you tell me more about that? Is a classic therapist move. So, why not? Try it out. But yeah, you ask after each task. And if you are the only person testing, which again is me a lot of the time too, it might be hard to remember to ask that when you're already trying to take notes on a task and time things. But it is worth doing in a lot of cases. You can see which things are the most difficult for people as they perceive them themselves on your list. So if you have 10 questions in your test and everybody's like, this one task was a 1, that tells you really what part of the test to focus on. Even if they're successfully completing it, if their perception is that it's hard, it might have nothing to do with their success rate. That's something really that you can take back to the team and say, people are able to do this, but they have a sense that it's really difficult for them. So what can we do to improve that user experience? So yeah, I like to, go through. This was just one little chart example. So I had 10 questions and kind of got messed up when I pasted it, but I had my little confidence interval in there, so what the range of possible scores for each question would be. For you stats people, of course, confidence interval is, anyway. But so, I had, this is a 7-point scale, so 1 to 7. And each question, you can see that people thought they were all pretty freaking easy. I don't have a single average for a question that's below a 5. No, this was actually the same data set as the last one. So yeah, people really liked it. Our designer was really happy. Whatever. No, it was actually great. But yeah, people's perception was of ease, as well as, when I then asked them to talk about to answer the system usability scale questions, I found that was sort of a consistent across the 2 metrics. And that's what we look for, is that kind of consistency. So, okay. I have time for questions. And if there's anything that you in the spreadsheet, when we were doing that part, found confusing or want to see, I'm happy to do it. Yeah, and you can also type a question on here if you want to, or just put it in the chat. And no dogs or people walked in, so I feel like it was good. Okay. Got my... Yeah, I'm trying to think of... if there's anything else I have to say about metrics. If anybody's used a different metric as well, there are plenty of them. And you can stats out on this stuff too. So you can do, all of your like, mean, median, mode basics on your information. I make charts, like I said, with all the times. So I record for each task what each user spent time-wise on each task. And then I determine what tasks took the longest too, and what the average for those are. So 3rd chart. Yeah.
I have a non-chart question.
Ooh, yes.
Back at the beginning, when you're planning your like discussion guide or script, I guess task script, you said, you need to think about what you want to know about the product. Mm-hmm. And it's always difficult for me to narrow down what I want to know. Do you have any tips for doing that? I mean, it's probably very project specific, but I don't know.
Yeah. Sometimes I interview my colleagues and say, like, okay, what do we need people to accomplish with this? I've definitely had cases where I thought I knew what the tasks or how people were going to use it. And I thought I knew how to focus my task list, and then had to revise after a couple tests too, because people were really using things in ways I hadn't anticipated. But I focused on usually talking to, like, sometimes even our salespeople. If it's a project they'd pitched, what did we sell to the clients? Like, what did we agree that we were going to make for people, and how are they supposed to be using this? What are the core tasks involved in their job, or what are the core tasks that we need for them to do for us to make money, or what do we need them to find to consider the experience a success? So yeah, asking my colleagues helps. As somebody who's a field worker, which is a whole other presentation, I actually tend to go to advocate for people sending me out into the field to figure out what the important and key components of people's jobs are, and what the tasks they need to be able to accomplish are. And that guides my testing later on, and also the development of the product. So that's like a perfect world. And I don't think anybody's I know is traveling for testing right now, so, or for field work. But you know, in one case, like we went out and watched what people were doing in the workplace. So we knew, okay, these are the things a tool must do, these 10 things or 3 things. These people need to be able to clock into a construction site. They need to be able to indicate whether they're late or they're leaving early. It needs to know where they are, which site they're at. It needs to, notify a supervisor if there isn't a foreman on the crew who's clocked in. So basically you've got like a bunch of unsupervised people. If a maximum number or minimum number of people haven't clocked in, there needs to be ways for people to request help. Yeah, so we had this whole list that we determined. And then I knew, okay, the tool to be successful has to do these things. So let's make our usability test ask those questions. I don't know how to give short answers to things, too, by the way.
Oh, that was great. One follow-up question, I guess, before I let anybody else ask questions. So trying to keep it to an hour per session, does that typically equate to a happy medium number of tasks? I know everybody will take a different amount of time per task. But...
I mean, as you might have seen in the last graph, I love a 10 question test, but that's it's never perfect. I run through the test myself or with somebody I work with sometimes, and I see like, okay, if this is, sometimes I try to grab somebody in the office who hasn't seen the product, like not the designer. And I'll have them run through it and see if I need to cut tasks or whether I need to add them, or, if I can frustrate, like, I like to grab HR people. They're usually pretty busy though, but they're also really usually pretty nice to me about it. So yeah, so I'll find somebody who just hasn't seen the product, and I'll use them as my guinea pig, sometimes more than one person. Yeah.
Good pilot session.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Low stakes run through. If I'm doing like a high pressure in-person thing too, okay, it doesn't need to be high pressure but running through it as well with some coworkers can be really useful, especially if more than one of you is going to be running the test. So yeah, the run through helps with those pre-test jitters where you're not sure if everything's going to fail too. But that's sort of a perfect world scenario too. You don't always get to.
Yeah, good point. Anybody else have any questions?
I feel like there's a possibility we're all too tired for questions at this point in 2021.
That could be, and that's why we have an office hour this time next week. Well, almost this time, 6:30 to 7:30 next Thursday evening. Thank you for sharing that. Perfect, perfectly timed. So yeah, next Thursday is our last office hour of the hackathon series. I can't believe it. The link in this slide is to the sign up sheet that you guys are probably all familiar with by now. But please, again, fill out the project summary that we introduced last office hour. We got good feedback that it was helpful for mentors. So just update the one that you used before or create a new one, put it in there next to your time slot. There are just 3 of us who will be participating next Thursday. So hopefully we will have enough to go around for everybody. And then last announcement is our showcase event, which is so exciting. I can't wait to see what all of the teams have come up with. So there are guidelines for the presentation on our Notion page, but Michelle is also very kindly working on a deck template for you if you would like to use that. So check back for that soon. That sign up link, it's just the second tab in the office hour sign up sheet. Thank you, Jasmine, for creating that. You can just pick a time slot in that Saturday event and add your presentation deck there. And we'll do lightning round presentations and let everybody pick what they like best about your project. And then also have a community choice award for the series as well. So super excited to see what everybody has created and tested. And thanks so much to Dr. Rodwell for putting this together for us at the beginning of a wild school year. We really appreciate your time. So thanks a lot for joining us.
Well, thank you to you guys. You guys run a really, really tight, good ship here. So I love your setup, and it's really fun to get to talk to all of you guys.
Awesome. Well, we will let you ladies go for the evening and hope to see you next week and at the showcase. All right. Bye, everybody.
Thank you, everybody.